Hi guys, my name is Cash and you're watching Cashed Out Cars. Welcome back to another episode of the DR350 build series. So in today's episode we finally have some parts in, which I'm going to show you in a second here. But the goal of today's video is going to be to get this gas tank off, which requires me to take the seat off. This side panel is already off, and then we'll be taking the side panel off of this side to get to the seat bolts. We're going to drain the old gas out of this thing, and depending on how long this video goes, we could either rebuild the fuel shutoff or do the whole fuel system and rebuild that carburetor too. But like I said, that'll depend on how long the video's looking. I might split it up into multiple parts. So now that you know what we're going to be looking at this episode, let's look at what we have for parts. Alright guys, so this is what we have for parts. We don't have a huge pile yet, but we have a good amount of stuff. So we have the fuel shutoff rebuild right here. Right now on that bike, if you turn the fuel to off, it drips out of that fuel shutoff. So we're going to be rebuilding that and hopefully correcting it. We have a whole carb rebuild kit here. This was fairly inexpensive and it comes with all the O-rings and jets and everything we need to rebuild that carburetor. And then we also have some oil filters, so when we're ready, we'll be able to do the engine oil and have this bike basically good to go. So I'm excited about that stuff. I don't have too much more coming in at this time. All I have coming in is some turn signals, and I was going to get the LED turn signals, but I was reading that since this is an old bike, I might need additional resistors and stuff like that, and I didn't want to deal with that, so I got some inexpensive traditional style turn signals coming in. So we'll be installing those once they come in, but for now, let's dive into getting this gas tank off. So all we have to do to get this side panel off here is remove this one fastener. It's a 10mm. We're going to pull that off and then the side cover will come right off. And that's all there is to it. So here's what we're looking at with that side cover off. One thing to note is in the last episode I did get this bike running, but it was running on starter fluid, and it would idle on regular gas, but it wouldn't rev up or anything, which is why we're doing that carb rebuild. But there was a bit of an exhaust leak. I don't know if it was coming from right here or just as the packing behind this was heating up or something, because I put some fiberglass back there. So we're going to investigate that some more, but that'll be for after we actually get the bike running consistently and reliably. Alright, next up we have two 12mm fasteners. There's one on each side, so I'm going to pop those out and then the seat should be able to slide right off. Smooth. Now we'll get this other side off here. As you could tell, the wiring harness is a bit of a mess on this thing, and that's probably part of the reason why the turn signals don't work. And now we could go ahead and get the seat off. It's as simple as just sliding it back like this and lifting it out of place. Alright, the next thing we have to do is get the lines off of this fuel shutoff valve here. If you have a bike that has a fuel shutoff that has reserve, on, and PRI, that PRI means prime, and basically the fuel shutoff valve is off if the bike's not running unless you're in that PRI or prime position. So what we're going to do here is disconnect that line there and have a lot of rags handy in case this thing does decide to dump fuel. And then we could take the tank off by disconnecting these two fasteners right there, and then the tank should slide out of place. Alright, got that one off there. And that's off there. So now we could go ahead and disconnect the tank and pull it off. This is also a 12mm here. And now we should be able to just lift this tank right off. Basically just pull it straight up. And there we go guys, the tank is off. Alright, so now I'm going to dump all that old gas into this can. We're pretty cheap, so we're just going to reuse this gas in the lawnmower because the lawnmower should run on it. I am straining this with a shirt in there to get as much of the crap out of the gas as I could so that doesn't go into the lawnmower. But here we go. That gas is nasty, guys. I don't know if you could see that, but it is just yellow. Honestly, I don't even know if this is going to go into the lawnmower. Man, we caught a lot of stuff, I could tell you that. Alright guys, just so you could see this, all of this crap came out of the gas tank. There's a lot of built up sediment in the bottom, and that's all stuff that we do not want going through the carburetor, so it's a good thing I drained this gas. If we look in the tank over here, it's a similar story, and I'm going to have to find a way to get all the rest of the built up stuff out of the bottom of this tank. So that's the next thing that we're going to do here. Alright, so the bottom of this tank is looking really gross, so I'm going to pour some detergent into here. This isn't actually Simple Green, it's a different cleaner called Awesome Cleaner that you mix with water, and this is already mixed. So I'm going to dump a little bit on each side of the tank here, and then I'm going to go ahead and swish this around and try to free up some of that stuff that's in the bottom. And then once I swished it, I'm going to use this dowel to help free up even more. Gonna let that soak for a little bit and then use this rag with this dowel to get as much of that crap out of there as I could. Now this isn't necessarily the best method. If you had any sort of brush that would get down there, that would be ideal, but this is what I'm working with and it will do a bit of the trick about freeing everything up here. Alright, now I'm going to fill up the tank with some water to just rinse it out a final time here. And I actually might do this a couple times, not just once. And this will help get all the extra cleaner and extra stuff out of the tank that you don't want in there. So once again, I'm just filling this thing up with some water. I'm going to shake it around, get as much as I can out, and then we're going to go from there. Also, while I'm at it here, I'm just cleaning all the dirt, and there's a little bit of mold on here, and I'm just getting all of that off of this tank. I'm also going to just carefully brush off the fuel shutoff valve, so that's a little bit cleaner when we're working on it later. So yeah, I'm just going to make this thing look really good, and then we could take it back inside and let it dry, and then move on to the next part of this project. Alright, so now we have this tank all cleaned up. I cleaned the outside of it since it was out, and that looks very good. It's not dirty or grimy or moldy anymore. The inside also looks very good. You probably can't see it right now because it's dark, but there's really no sediment left in the bottom of that tank. It looks basically brand new in there, so the tank itself is now good to go. The next thing that we're going to tackle with this is rebuilding that fuel shutoff valve, or petcock, or if you're one of my friends, I used to call them peacocks. But we're going to rebuild that thing because it currently leaks. I have the rebuild kit to do it, so let's dive into that. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is take this fuel shutoff valve off of the tank itself. So there are just two screws to do that. There's this one here and this one there. You could use either, I'm guessing, a 10mm socket or a Phillips head screwdriver. I'm just using a screwdriver. And now this thing should just carefully pull out of place there. And there it is. Right now mine is a bit full of water because obviously I just washed this thing out with water. So to drain that, you could put your little valve over to prime there, put this in a place where you're willing to pour the contents out, and then call it a day and continue on with the rebuild. Alright, so here's the new fuel shutoff valve. This thing was $9 shipped off of eBay, and the rebuild kit was $11, so I've returned that and I picked this thing up. And now we could install it on the tank, get this thing hooked up to the bike, and then we should be all set. And there we go, that's all installed. Alright guys, so the new fuel shutoff valve is in place there. That thing is all good to go, and in the next episode we're going to be taking off this carb and cleaning that thing out and rebuilding it, and then we're going to run all the lines to the carb and see if this thing starts. So that's going to wrap up this episode of this DR350 build series. In the next episode, like I said, we're diving into that carb and trying to start this bike without starting fluid. So with all that said, like this video if you liked it, subscribe for more, and I hope you stick around for the next one. Take care.